This is Dave Fleming, Senior Leader at Aldea Spiritual Community. Work. We all have experience with work, the stress of work, the realities of work. Some of us love our work. Some people find their work to be distasteful all the way to hating their work. Wherever you fall on that continuum, here's something that's true for all of us. All of us experience stress at work. And we need calm in the midst of that stress. In fact, we actually perform better when we find ways to navigate stress with calm. We're smarter, we're more productive, we're more effective. But more than that, how can we bring our calm self into all the chaotic situations that often happen at work? You've reached the third conversation of a 4-part series entitled Calm, Finding Stillness Wherever You Are. And for millions and millions and millions of people, not only in our country, but around the world, billions, work is somewhere they find themselves on a regular basis. How to bring stillness, how to bring calm, how to navigate stress in the midst of work. That's today's topic. Surely something we all think about on a regular basis. And work provides this incredibly unique place where we have to learn strategies in real time. We're going to talk about that today with our two guests, Sarah Owen and Nick Montoya. After you listen to the podcast and the aftercast, why not take just some time either on your own or with a group of people, even better, to download our reflective guide and use it as a pathway into your own conversation about work and stress and calm. If this is the first time you're seeing one of our conversations, we welcome you. If you're part of our community, we are grateful for your participation in what we're doing and what we're creating. Aldea is an inclusive spiritual community that seeks to live lives of wisdom and meaning and purpose with love at the center. You can start an Aldea group right where you live with your friends. Watch every week as we make our way through topics like calm, and as we then explore those with our own friends to learn, to be transformed, and then to share that in the way we act, live, and serve and work in the world. If you're part of our community and you value what we do, we encourage you to donate at loveperiod.org. And most importantly, we're delighted that you're here today to explore this important topic. Okay, all right, we're on, and here we go. Well, I'm joined today by two conversationalists, Sarah Owen and Nick Montoya. Let me just introduce them briefly. Sarah leads a passionate and diverse team at Collaboratory, the headquarters for the greatest problem-solving initiative in American history. Whoa, Sarah. Collaboratory is coordinating the solving of all the region's social problems on an 18-year deadline. Her journey in community change-making follows a career in investor relations and corporate communications, where she worked for investors and innovators in a variety of fields. Sarah brings this focus to her work at Collaboratory as she seeks out ideas to end suffering in communities through meaningful connections. And Nick Montoya likes to describe himself, I like this, as momentum unleashed. Might have to ask you about what that means, Nick. He has one clear objective: to unleash the momentum within each of us to live a happy, fulfilling, passionate life. He's an author, business consultant, entrepreneur, owns a yoga studio where he is sitting currently, a dance company, and an event center in Fort Myers, Florida, and founded the Ageless program. After a successful 28-year career as a senior manager for the Intel Corporation, he left the corporate world to dedicate to helping people heal and get healthy through yoga, mindfulness, and meditation. So welcome to both of you. I guess my first question is, Sarah, how calm are you today?
Yeah, I think it's just being with you and Nick that kind of calmed me down. I have to tell you, I'm pretty much just wanting to almost be an observer in this conversation and learn from both of you. But I feel good today.
Yeah, fantastic. And Nick, I mean, I don't even know if it's fair where you are right now in your yoga studio, but how calm are you today? How are you today?
Very calm.
You're this is just not fair. I feel like we should do yoga right now.
I feel great today, as I do every day. I think, basically making the career change as into yoga and as a yoga studio owner. That's one of the reasons I did that. Is a little bit of a lot of selfishness for myself, because I get the benefit of all the calm and the meditation that I teach. So
yeah.
I got a role model it.
Absolutely. And of course, that's what we're here to talk about today, is calm at work. And, just to kind of get us into the conversation, and we'll just see where this goes. The interesting thing I've been thinking about when it comes to calm at work is that it is a unique environment where lots of stress is happening. And that's not all necessarily bad. We need stress to be able to perform. Lots of stress is happening at work, and yet it can become toxic. It can overwhelm us, or we can do things that create that sense of the tipping point where now my stress has moved into something unhealthy at work. And if it stays there, it can have long-term effects on us. But it's also a super interesting environment in that, Nick, I can't stop necessarily during the day and do an hour yoga exercise routine. Well, maybe I can now with the pandemic, right? But I mean, I think it's almost gotten worse with camera meeting after camera meeting after camera meeting. And so finding ways to bring calm to work is a really unique challenge. And I guess for both of you, I'm just wondering, what's that like for you? When do you find, Sarah, let's just, why don't you just open it up here? When you think about calm at work and you think about the environment of work, what's your journey been like through this?
I came up through the 80s, right? The whole Gordon Gekko, greed is good era. I worked in corporations. And so, I came through an era for a while where I almost think being stressed was a badge of honor. Like you almost needed to be stressed if you were really killing it, right? Like, oh, I'm so stressed. Oh my God, I'm working till 2 a.m. People would come into meeting saying, I got only 4 hours. I got only 2, so from early in my career, I was kind of conditioned to this idea that it was worth it, that it had to be a grind and it had to be tough. Nobody ever spoke into my life like, hey, it's feeling good feels good, or everything good doesn't come from the grind, right? So I think it's a lot about maybe how you were conditioned about work and how you view stress. And it took me a long time to really acknowledge that being successful or being worthy or being productive wasn't connected to stress. It was really connected to something else.
I can relate to that. Growing up in my career at Intel Corporation, one of the founding principles, cultural principles of Intel, being a Silicon Valley company, is it's all about constructive confrontation. I mean, we actually had classes on how to constructively confront. And so there was just all the stress, all this, creating that stress in the environment so you could always get to, better solutions. And within all that, so it was really a lot about creating internal stress to arrive at more productive solutions. And so that, going back into it now, I'm not sure what I really think about that now, but that was part of the culture in the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, this idea of constructive, was it constructive conflict?
Constructive confrontation.
Confrontation.
Yes.
I mean, it reminds me of what even just happens to us biologically when we feel confronted. And I mean, even if it's constructive, maybe if it's compassionate, that's a good thing. But it can so easily create a threat response in me that elevates my stress in a way that makes it not easy to do my best work.
Oh, it wasn't compassionate by no means.
Okay, all right.
This thing in your face, and you had to be strong. You had to be strong to take it, and you also had to be strong to give it. So I learned not only to take it, but also to give it. And that was sort of counterintuitive for me because I didn't really grow up that way. But you adjusted.
Huh. Yeah, and then layer being a woman on top of that in industries that are mainly, were male dominated at the time. And I felt this extra pressure to come on strong. I mean, I often joke, not in a funny way, but just joke how ridiculous it is. I mean, I'm pretty sure that no one knew I had kids in a big humps of my job. Like, you would never say it. So just think, there's all of these stressors. You can't express them in any healthy capacity. You're put in a situation where, stress is rewarded, and it just becomes kind of almost like a powder keg. And then what you see is people, it didn't change from the inside out, right? Instead, people just left. They're like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. Rather than ever there being kind of in that period of time, focus. I mean, there wasn't even really corporate social responsibility other than like maybe one or two like companies. There was nobody talking about humanity or anything of that nature.
Yeah. What's so interesting about this is, speaking of humanity and being a human being at work, David Rock, who's done a lot of writing and research on the brain at work, has come up with this 5-letter acronym that shows the things at work that create stress that either cause me to avoid or approach, right? And here they are. Status, that means, do I have a significance to other people in my work and in my relationships? Certainty. So uncertainty creates the possibility of more stress. And then there's a lot of that at work. Autonomy, which is the ability to have control over my sense of myself, which, Sarah, it doesn't sound like you had much of that. Relatedness, so how we're feeling about each other, creates either a kind of positive or negative stress. And then fairness, how fair we perceive the exchanges between the people that we work with. And when I listen to both of you talk, it just feels like in the worlds you were a part of, and this still I think is true to some degree, that it was almost designed to remove calm. And maybe not intentionally, but it creates this kind of stress. How did that affect you?
Well, one of our founders, I don't even know if it might be the title of one of his books, but it was called "Only the Paranoid Survive." And that was,
there you go.
That was very, very it permeated the entire culture. It's like you got competition chomping at your bit. You got to be paranoid in order to survive. And so that paranoia is stress related. And it was an interesting time. Learned a lot, absolutely. But getting back to all of that is, one of the things that I've learned through all my studies of yoga here in the last 12 to 13 years, is all that stress that is created has to end up being stored someplace, and it ends up getting stored in our bodies. And when that occurs over time and over the years, that's where illness and disease and just our overall mental health starts to decline, just because we're storing all this stress and not having a way of dealing with it appropriately or releasing it. And for me, thank God I found yoga, because I was it would not have been a good turnout.
Just kind of letting it breathe here a bit. What do you, Sarah, when you think about, you're a leader of an organization. You listen to Nick talk about the culture that he was involved in, and your own cultures, organizational cultures that you've been a part of. I mean, what do you make of that now that you're a CEO? How has that changed how you lead? And
Well,
what do you lead from? What are you
Yeah.
leading from in this?
Yeah, I overcorrected, right? So I went way the other way, right? Like when I got in a position of leadership and change fields and all of that kind of thing, and it wasn't the changing the fields that was the motivator for me. It was some things that I had experienced, and I just really felt like there could be a different way that people could work. I just thought, I imagined a place that I would want to work. But I did that thing where I overcorrected, and I wanted to make work just great for everybody, right? Like I went so far the other way that when people had personal healing they needed to do, which wasn't really directly related to the work, but impacted work, like I just tried to fix everything and almost create like this utopia situation. And overcorrecting for it, I just became controlling in a different kind of way, right? Like I came out of this culture that was controlled in one way. And then as I reflect back, and I'm still learning and growing, I'm still evolving in this, right? Because my ultimate desire is to create a space where people want to work. But I finally figured out I don't control everybody's emotional health. Right. So I'm understanding now that people come to me with a lot of different healing that they need to do individually. And I see that a lot of stress at work doesn't come from the work. It comes from all the interpersonal relationships. And I'm just watching people on personal journeys of healing. And, I remember early in a just a personal relationship I have, a really smart therapist looked at me one day and said, quit trying to heal yourself in this relationship. Like this relationship wasn't built for you to be healed. And it's the same thing in the work relationships. I see people trying to heal deep wounds or other experiences that they've had at work. And they try to work at work so many hours of the day that I'm starting, I think over the last couple of years, I've just observed people that are in deep pain about a lot of different things. And we use this environment to heal ourselves. And there's some saying, I won't get it right, but when you cut a vein to heal, be careful that you didn't bleed all over everybody else in the room at the same time. And I'm seeing more and more of these interpersonal relationships at work causing people stress. People will say, oh, I love the work, I just don't like the people,
Yeah. And I mean, all of a sudden you're creating more stress by trying to reduce it. Is sort of what I hear you kind of concluded.
Really understanding that I wanted to create a culture I wanted to create a culture. But then, no, the culture is created by the people. The culture is what it is. I mean, I can put certain values that we all agree on in place and things like that, but I took on this role that I was responsible for the culture at work. So every time someone was trying to heal or had a problem or something was going on, I'm trying to correct it or fix it. And that's what I mean by I overcorrected it. All I did was create a whole nother level of stress that felt very much the same, but just came from a different place. So that's kind of where I am now, is really examining, what it takes within an organization. What personal responsibilities do people have to take for themselves to bring their best selves? And are we casting a big enough dream and purpose that people can be cause in the matter and create a healthy environment, which I think then reduces the stress.
Yeah. So all right. So we've sort of just opened up this door of work is a very interesting, unique place where stress happens. And it's different in every organization, but we're still fighting workload and relational mismatches at work and other things that make it difficult to navigate stress at work. But it's not impossible to navigate at work, and it's not impossible to find calm. And I'd like for the three of us just to talk about, what have we done? What do we do? How is your mindfulness practice or your spirituality or the things that you try to do both at work and beyond to bring that kind of calm to work? And I mean, Nick, again, this is just not fair. I mean, look at you over there in a yoga studio. So the first thing you're going to say is, well, I do yoga. But yeah, let's talk about strategies. And Nick, think about the corporate world you were in, and how would you translate some of this?
I still have many relations with, because I did have a consulting company for a period of time after I published a book and blah, blah, blah. And so with that, I do have a lot of relationships where I still talk with a lot of CEOs actually in the Northern California area. And so for me is from the mindful, and also is, besides being a yoga studio owner, my daughter and I own two other businesses that are not yoga related. And so there's a lot of opportunity for stress in those other businesses as well, especially given a year and a half of a pandemic. But the consultation or the advice that I give to myself and to so many others in just really dealing with the day-to-day stress that we encounter in our lives or at work or at home or whatnot is pretty simple. Two things. Number one is just really try not to react. Instead, breathe, take a couple of deep breaths, and then respond. So think about breathing and responding instead of immediately reacting. Because what I find is so much of the stress that it's created is the own stress that we create because we react. And now we have to, oh man, I should not have said that. I should have done something different. I should have, could have, would have, and so we go into that whole space because we reacted. And I think we can alleviate quite a bit of that if we just go in, before I react, I'm going to breathe and respond. And coupled with that is very simply come away with a mantra. So a lot of times for me a mantra might be, for example, just very simple, 3 words: relax, calm, breathe. And so if I just remind myself throughout the day, you know, it's like relax, calm, breathe. And it's all those three words. Those are sort of the triggers that like, okay, I can handle this. So that would be a couple of very simple little strategies to use in a day-to-day environment for almost anything.
Do you have any mantras, Sarah?
I don't think any that I can say, you know, on air publicly. No, honestly, it's more, I do really check in on a mantra, and actually I actually take Nick's words really to heart. I do say, reflect, don't react, reflect, don't react, right? And the other mantra that is really running through my mind these days, that seems to really alleviate stress for me, is I say, what's the lesson, in my own mind, right? So I might be in a really stressful situation where I normally would want to react. And instead, if I ask myself in a mantra way, just over and over, even in the conversation that is creating stress in the moment, I just ask myself and the universe, what's the lesson? What's the lesson? And it somehow calms me, because I'm then learning, or something's being revealed to me that I need to know, instead of me either needing to fix it, react emotionally to it, or other reactions that I think might bring up stress. What's the lesson?
Beautiful.
Yeah. You know, I've for myself, I find that the awareness to be in that space, to be able to draw on the mantra or draw on, you know, what we're talking about here, that more mindful space, is sometimes, for me, I don't know if I want to say it's in conflict with the moment, but the moment is taking a lot of energy to stay in that moment. And all of a sudden I'm feeling the reactivity start, or Nick, I'm already in that space of reactivity before I recognize that it's happening. And then obviously there's the need to repair or back up, but the awareness in the real-time moment is, I'm just curious, you know, what do you both find? Do you always find that it requires reacting a bit and then you move back, or do you have strategies that keep you on the front end of that? Sometimes I can stay on the front end depending on how I enter, but I can lose it in the scope of 20 minutes on a call. And it's not an easy thing to stay mindful of that while also trying to concentrate on the work at hand. I mean, sometimes I wonder if that's not possible, or I'm just not that enlightened yet. And it's probably number two.
I would say that mindfulness is a practice. So it's something, you know, so we get good at what we practice at. And I was reading some of your previous week's notes, and I think in week one you talked a lot about equanimity. Equanimity is number one for me.
Yeah.
And actually, in my teacher training program, we dedicated an entire weekend just to equanimity, because I think it's that important. And
Yes.
And so equanimity as a practice, you know, to be calm through the standing in the midst of the chaos of our life, as peaceful and calm as possible. It's a practice. And so maybe in the beginning of the practice, you know, it's lopsided. It might be 90%, you know, it's reaction, and then, you know, the 10% is you approach it in a little bit more calm fashion. But over time, as we practice, we get better and better at it, so that maybe it moves from the 90% to the 50%, then maybe it might completely reverse itself to 10 and 90.
Sure.
But all of that is practice, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's also kind of looking at it like preventive medicine. Like, I'm getting better, Dave, at knowing what maybe is something that would make me react, or I know certain people or certain conversations. So really examining, and I haven't been doing, I kind of feel hypocritical saying this, anybody who knows my calendar right now, but I'm going back in. Like, I got to look at my calendar. I've got to look at what I'm eating. I've got to look at my practices, right? I've got to look at the calendar. To me, really points to a lot of it. Like, if you really look at someone's calendar, and are they doing preventative things that are going to make them less likely to react? For me, that's a big part of it. If I'm overtired, if I'm overscheduled, if I'm doing the things that I know, it's just like health. If I'm smoking and, eating terrible and never exercising, I'm going to have some bad outcomes. So I try to look at it a little bit. What you're mentioning, Dave, is like prevention for me, and knowing, okay, I'm about to enter. I even write myself a note on the iPad in a meeting, or on the top of a piece of paper. I might write a mantra, or I might write like things that I need to be reminded of in a preventative way if I know that I'm at risk of being that, or just speaking it out loud. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, I just want to let everybody know, I didn't get all that much sleep last night. I don't think I'm maybe right where I need to be on the awareness scale. So, I'm gonna be a little quiet in this meeting today. Let's see how that goes, or something.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Letting people in on that.
Yeah, plan for it like you plan for other things. But Dave, I do the same thing. And it's so weird when it happens. It's almost like you're right in the middle of the reaction. It's almost like an out-of-body experience for me, where there's someone, myself, saying, stop, here you go. And I'm gone, right? I'm stressed. My cadence gets louder. I'm talking faster. It's very weird when it happens, and you're just like, it's almost like you can't stop yourself.
A couple of quotes that I think are really germane to what we're talking about. One from Sam Harris, where he says, most of us spend every waking moment lost in the movie of our lives. Until we see that an alternative to this enchantment exists, we are entirely at the mercy of appearances. I think that is so powerful, because I can start, work is full of all of these different stories that are going on, and all of the different, little narratives and little things and little dramas, and these things that become like being lost in a movie. And we can completely be lost in something that actually isn't even real. It's not so even real.
True. That's so true. And listen, that's so interesting. I had never heard that quote before. I'm going to look it up now, because I actually, a couple of years ago, did some work in therapy around meditation and a visualization of actually burning down the movie theater. Okay.
Wow.
Like, I actually, because of what you're saying, visualize burning my theater to the ground, like just wiping it out. And it made a huge difference in exactly what that quote is saying. Like, that I got out of this script that was happening so that I could be free from it.
Wow, Sarah. So it was an appearance that had a certain amount of sway in your life because it was just playing over and over and over again. Yeah. Oh, I get that.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people get that, right?
Pretty much everybody, I'm sure.
Pretty much everybody gets it. Yeah.
Right. Then the other quote, Nick, I thought you might like this. Let me see if I can just get to it really quick. When you were talking about equanimity, one of my favorite authors is Pemmer Chodron. I'm sure you're familiar with her, and she says to cultivate equanimity, we practice catching ourselves when we feel attraction or aversion before it hardens into grasping or negativity. Wow, I love that. Equanimity is the ability to cultivate it, is to catch ourselves when we feel attraction to something or aversion to something before it turns into or hardens into grasping or negativity.
I love that.
I know. Isn't that powerful?
That's very powerful.
I mean, so Nick, in the work you do on the body, how do you see equanimity related to even how the body, you said we store a lot of this in our body, which I'm much more aware of at 56, almost 7, than I was at 36, almost 7. Like there's a whole different experience of the storage of stress at my current age. And it also, I think, the lack of equanimity just increases that possibility of holding stress. And I mean, my wife, Sarah knows my wife well, she'll say, you're holding so much tension in your neck, Dave. You're holding so much tension, in different parts of your body. And I just wonder if you could speak a little, Nick, to at work, what can we do to release that in real time so that we don't end up storing it?
Real briefly and simply is the focus on your breath. Because, I mean, if like right now, if we were just to each one of us take 3 deep breaths, just breathe, big breath in and just let it out. And we just do that 3 times.
Well, let's just do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's just do it.
So here we go. Take a big inhale, filling up. Open the mouth, sigh this one out. And another time, filling up and up and up and up. Hold it at the top and release that breath. Now this time, close your eyes. Inhale, filling up. And release that out. Gently open your eyes, blink them open. And just 3 simple, deep breaths right then and there released a lot of stress. Whatever we were holding on in our shoulders and our neck, that's where we hold a lot of short-term stress. That just sort of starts to relax it down. So for me, it's all this stuff for me, one of the things that I've really learned is it's simple. It's the simple stuff.
Yes.
It's not this over analytical, type of thing. It's in these, I think, we are given, the universe has given us some very, very simple tools. And, our Eastern brethren have learned these through thousands of years, and we're just now starting to learn them here in the Western world.
Absolutely. Yeah, the power of the breath is one of those for sure.
Yeah, and what at leaders, and I don't mean leaders maybe in a hierarchy or status at work, but just anytime you're leading a meeting at work, can we make it comfortable enough that the person starting the meeting says, hey, wait, before we start, let's do this. I mean, how many meetings I go in, I'm rushing in, you slide into your chair, you're trying to get right to the point, let's go, we got to get this accomplished. And there's kind of an awkward uncomfortableness I notice when you start a meeting and say, okay, before we start, let's take a mindful moment, or let's take a few deep breaths. Like you can almost feel the awkwardness in the room, but can you sit with it and begin making it a practice? Because like Nick says, it's so simple, but we just don't set any time aside to do it. And I think those of us in organizations, like anybody listening right now, like what if we all just committed we're before every meeting we have, we're going to take together 3 big breaths, and we're going to be willing to sit with the 3 people that are rolling their eyes or whatever, and then they're going to realize how much better they feel, and then you're going to be able to react in a better way. I mean, just doing that at work could make tremendous difference. I tend to do it for a little while, and then I'll forget to do it, need to come back and reset it,
Yeah. And I think another thing that's very helpful, Sarah, is, in starting out a meeting, really any type of meeting, is, I think what trips us up a lot are expectations. And expectations so many times are unstated. And so we have these expectations about ourselves or about our boss or about our coworkers or about the environment or about the culture, about the company, and we bring all these expectations. We never even talk about them or state them. And of course, we set them so high that we don't meet them, and then we end up with disappointment and stress and everything else. So what I try to do and expectations trip me up in my personal life and my professional life, I would say too many times. And now I really have a sense of, let's drop all the expectations right now. Just drop them. And instead of bringing the expectations in, let's replace all of that with your intention. What is your intention in this meeting? You don't have to state it, but just really reflect on that for just a second for yourself. And then it's these intentions that we're bringing into this environment or this meeting or this work project, and that's going to be your driver, And so I think that to really have the conversation about expectation versus intention sort of does a shift. And I find that's been very productive and helpful for a lot of organizations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to take that advice. That's good. I'm taking that one down. I'm leaving this with that one. Thank you.
So Sarah, when you do that, how will you balance that against you have certain expectations for the meeting?
Well, I think that goes back to some of this human dynamic that I'm talking about, right? That really, I think, trips us up. Here at Collaboratory, we've actually formed a new organizational structure, and in it is a nurturing department. And although we want to provide that as a resource for our region, right, we also know that has to happen inside of here. And when I say nurturing, I'm not really talking about self-care as much as how do we care for the spaces we create when we're having any meeting or any conversation or anything like that. So, really checking in, usually the intentions drive the expectation of the meeting anyway, even if you don't say it out loud, right? So it's better to just put it out there, even if you keep it to yourself, like, what's my intention for this meeting, rather than what do I want? What am I taking from this meeting? What do I need to get for myself from this meeting? More that kind of being the cause of the matter, and what am I bringing to this meeting? I still think as a leader, you can set a vision of what we're trying to create. Set a beautiful, big vision that we can all strive to, but every step in the way, what are each person's intention about what they're going to bring to that space? So I am going to give that some thought, because I really, that resonated with me, what Nick said about that expectations versus intentions.
Yeah, I think in my work with organizations and being in lots of different organizations over the years, and walking with them for a certain amount of time, I can see just how easy it is to remain mindless to the things we're talking about here. And like you said, you just come in and we have an agenda, we have a thing to do, we're here to do it. And there really still is this idea that I'm not really first connecting to you as a human being. I'm still connecting as if it were 200 years ago when people were just seen as part of an assembly line. I mean, literally just another part of the assembly line, and really breaking that, and if you're a leader, or even if you're not, if you have some capital on your team and you're able to do some of the things we're talking about, what I've noticed, in my work is I'll do some of these same things we've talked about. Let's take some time to breathe. And I noticed with one group, I started to be super intentional. Every time we meet, I have them breathe. And then a couple weeks ago, we started to tail into the agenda, and someone said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 Dave, aren't we going to breathe?"
Where's my breath? Where's my breath?
I thought, aren't we going to breathe? And so it does start to shift the ideas in people's minds of what can we do to really, I just like to say, how do I want to show up in this meeting? Which to me is this idea of intention. How do I want to show up in this meeting? And man, does that make a difference if we are all thinking that way as we communicate with each other? Sarah, what's your current edge of growth when it comes to calm and both being a leader, that you want that for yourself and for your team? What's the real edge of growth for you there in your work, in your world?
Right now, it is definitely this understanding that I am not responsible for the culture of the organization solo, right? I cannot create a utopia based on what my expectations are, right? That culture belongs to everyone, and that my role is to work alongside the team to develop things that then they are creating the culture. I went through a whole period of time where people were coming to me saying, the culture around here is terrible, this culture stinks, and I spent 24/7 trying to fix it, right? Guess what? I couldn't fix the culture, because everyone was looking to me to create some kind of siloed culture that they wanted. And none of them were the same. So I was just racing around trying to figure out a way to create the perfect culture for every individual person. So a big edge of growth to me is really, what does it take to create a culture that's going to drive us toward our ultimate mission and vision? That's the thing driving us, is where we're trying to get, what we're trying to solve for. And then each person having the space and the time and the resources to make sure we're not bringing already listenings about each other into meetings. Now I'm going to really think on this intentionality versus expectation part. What are the things that people, that we agree together that we're going to be responsible together for the culture? And I think when you get that, then a calm is possible, right? Because each person is coming from that place. So I think that's a real edge of growth for me. I mean, I've long struggled with empathy and being an over empathetic leader. And so, I've done some work on that, but that's really where I am right now.
Yeah. I'll say for me, it's realizing that the amount of time I work is not equal to the results that I produce. And I have worked a lot in my life and talked myself, I think, at times into believing that, but not in a negative way. I'm not like, the burnout syndrome. But what I have realized recently is that I really have not done a good job at experiencing recovery from work. I've known about it, but as we talked about in the first week of this, am I really doing the first person work to actually experience it? And for me, the edge of growth is really to stop work and know that in the stopping of that work, I'm actually recovering and creating well-being, not just so I can go back and work, but so that I can live a more meaningful life full of well-being. And I think that's a real edge for me, because I've started to see again, as I'm sort of creeping through my 50s, that I overworked and my body held it, Nick, but didn't poke me enough to get me to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
But now my body's poking me in a way that is very pronounced. Yeah. How about for you, Nick?
I would say that my edge of growth these days is just really all about paying attention to the signs. Like one of my problems, and always has been, is I have a super creative mind, and I get all these ideas like, oh, I want to execute on all of them because they're pretty darn good. And
yeah.
It's like, oh, I can't let that one go, and so and then of course you get overwhelmed with pretty fast with all of the different things you want to do, and all the excitement and the passion you built around these things. But more and more, I'm starting to just take a step back and just like, where the path and the guidance that I need to go is it's already laid out there. I just need to be able to sit back, and so in that sitting back is my meditation practice is now becoming first and forefront. But it's in the meditation is where I'm finding where I'm able to be calm and still enough to where I can really start to maybe better understand and have some clarity around the signs that I am getting. Yes. That help provide guidance and clarity of next steps or different strategies or which idea or which thing. So I would say it's really getting out of my own way and allowing the universe that's already designed this for me to allow myself to be guided by those signs.
Well, Nick, so if we were at your studio right now and we were at the end of a yoga class, how would you end the class? Would you end our time together in a way you might end with either a thought or a mantra or a prayer, or how might you end a class, and could you end us today with that?
I'll be honored to. So let's come sit up nice and tall, shoulders soften down, navel to the spine, the crown of the head reaching for the heavens. Just let's allow your arms and hands to relax on your lap. A big breath in, filling up. Close your eyes. Exhale, release the breath. One more time, breath in, filling up. And release the breath. And bring your hands to heart center. The divine light that is within me bows to and honors the divine light that is within you. It's this light that is the source of our love, our peace, our kindness, our forgiveness, our truth, our beauty, and our perfection. Bringing our thumbs to our third eye center, the front middle part of our forehead. Here we honor our Creator. We honor each other. Om Shanti, 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 Om. Peace, peace, peace to you, my dear brother, my dear sisters, and to all those who will experience this podcast. Namaste.
Lovely. Thank you, Nick and Sarah. Sarah, that's how to end a meeting.
Exactly. I feel calmer already.
No kidding. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.